My cousin slapped me in front of 300 people at her wedding because I wouldn't give her my loft. Turns out a judge was watching. Ravagant wedding. My parents insisted that I give up my loft for their new family. Mom snapped, "Selfish kids don't deserve success," Dad added. "Your cousin's children need real homes." Cousin scoffed, finally getting what I've always deserved. When I refused, she hit me hard in front of 300 people. Everyone started laughing. I did not cry. I chose the revenge that would permanently silence them. The champagne glass trembled in my hand as I watched my cousin Melissa glide across the marble floor of the Plaza Hotel's grand ballroom, her custom Elie Saab gown trailing behind her like liquid silk. 300 people had arrived to witness her fairy tale wedding to Adrian, a successful hedge fund manager she met only 6 months before. I couldn't help but notice the irony that she was marrying for money while wanting mine. I'm Evelyn, 35 years old, and I've worked my ass off to be where I am now. While Melissa was busy playing house with several boyfriends in her 20s, I was pulling all-nighters in law school and working 80-hour weeks at a top Chicago firm. 6 years ago, I took the biggest risk of my life by opening my own firm, focusing on corporate litigation. It paid off incredibly. Last year, I closed a deal that allowed me to buy a loft overlooking Lake Michigan, which everyone now claimed belonged to them. Evelyn, darling, you look absolutely stunning. My mother, Patricia, approached with her usual fake smile, which she saved for when she wanted something. Her silver hair was perfectly styled, and she wore a burgundy dress that likely cost more than most people's rent. "We need to have a quick family talk." My stomach dropped. Family conversations in the Anderson household were never good news. "Mom, it's Melissa's wedding day. Can't whatever this is wait?" Actually, no. My father, Richard, appeared beside her, his expression cold. At 60, Dad still commanded attention in his fitted tuxedo, but his eyes carried the same disappointment that had followed me since childhood. "We've been discussing your living situation." My living situation? I sat down with my champagne and realized I needed both hands free. "What about my living situation?" "Well, honey," Mom's voice shifted into that overly sweet tone. "You know how Melissa and Adrian are starting their family? They're going to need more space than that tiny apartment Adrian has been renting." I blinked. "They're not even pregnant yet, Mom. But they will be soon." Melissa's voice cut into the small circle as she stepped in, her new husband's arm around her waist. At 31, she was definitely attractive with chestnut hair and hazel eyes, but her expression was calculated, and it made my skin crawl. "We're planning to start trying right away." "Congratulations," I said cautiously. "I'm sure you'll find a lovely place to raise your family." "We already have," Melissa replied, her smile bright. "We want your loft." The words hit me like a physical blow. "Excuse me?" "Now, Evelyn, before you get all defensive," Dad jumped in, his voice taking on that patronizing tone he used when he thought he was being reasonable. "Think about this logically. You're a single woman. You don't need all that space. Melissa and Adrian, on the other hand, are starting a family. They need room for children, for their future. You want me to give up my home?" I couldn't believe what I was hearing. The home I worked for years to afford. Not give up. Mom quickly corrected. Trade. "You could take Adrian's apartment. It's perfectly adequate for one person. A 550-square-foot studio in Brooklyn?" I asked flatly. "You want me to trade my 3-bedroom loft overlooking the lake for a studio in Brooklyn?" "Evelyn, don't be so dramatic," Melissa urged. "It's not like you even use all that space. What do you need 3 bedrooms for? You don't even have a boyfriend." The comment hit exactly how she intended. Melissa had always been the perfect child, the one who could do no wrong in our parents' eyes. They praised her bravery for dropping out of college to find herself. They called her job changes and relationships exploring her options. When I graduated top of my class from law school, they were worried I had worked too hard. "I need those bedrooms because it's my home," I said, my voice rising slightly. "I earned it. I paid for it, and I'm not giving it up." "Evelyn Grace Anderson." Mom's voice turned sharp. "That is incredibly selfish. Family comes first, always." "Family?" I laughed bitterly. "Have any of you ever treated me like family? When I needed help preparing for the bar exam, you said I was being antisocial. When I started my own firm and struggled, you called me reckless. When I finally succeeded, you pretended it was luck. That's not true, Dad said, but his voice lacked conviction. Isn't it? When was the last time any of you asked about my life, my career, my happiness? But the moment I have something you want, suddenly I'm family again. Melissa stepped forward, her face flushed with anger. You know what your problem is, Evelyn? You've always been jealous of me. You can't stand that I'm getting married, that I'm going to have the family you'll never have. I'm not jealous of you, Melissa. I'm disappointed in you. Disappointed? She laughed sharply. You're disappointed in me? I'm the one getting married, and I'll be the one to give Mom and Dad grandkids. What have you done besides make money? I've built a life, I said quietly. I've worked hard for everything I have. I've never asked any of you for anything. Well, now we're asking something of you, Dad said firmly. Your cousin needs that loft more than you do. It's time you did something for your family instead of just yourself. Richard's right, Mom said, raising her voice. Selfish children don't deserve success. You've had everything handed to you, and now you won't even help your own cousin. The accusation was so ridiculous, I almost laughed. Handed to me? I worked 3 jobs to pay for law school. I lived on instant noodles for 2 years while building my practice. I've never asked you for a cent. Your cousin's kids need real homes. Dad said loudly across the ballroom, making several nearby guests turn and stare. Not some cramped apartment. They deserve better. They're not even conceived yet. I protested, but I could already feel I was losing this argument. My family had always been experts at making me feel guilty about my own success. Melissa stepped closer, her voice dropping low and sharp. You know what, Evelyn? I'm done pretending to care about your feelings. I've always known I was the better daughter. I'm prettier. I'm more likable. I'm the one who makes Mom and Dad proud. And now I'm finally getting what I've always deserved. The words hung in the air between us, heavy and deliberate. Around us, wedding guests started to gather, sensing the tension. Some were openly staring now, their conversations fading as they focused on our family drama. What do you always deserve? I asked quietly. And what exactly is that, Melissa? Everything, she replied simply. The loft, the respect, the life you've been keeping for yourself. I deserve it all, and I'm finally going to get it. Over my dead body. The slap came so fast that I didn't even see it coming. Melissa's fingers hit my cheek with a sharp crack that echoed across the ballroom. For a split second, everything seemed to stop. 300 guests fell silent, their conversations cutting off mid-sentence as they turned to watch what had just happened. Then the laughter started. It began with a few scattered giggles from Melissa's friends, who had always looked down on me for being too serious and too focused on work. But it spread like wildfire through the crowd. Guests who didn't even know me were laughing, pointing, and whispering behind their hands. Did you see that? She actually slapped her. About time someone put Evelyn in her place. I always knew she was stuck up. My cheek burned, but I didn't cry. I wasn't going to give them that satisfaction. Instead, I just stood there, feeling the weight of 300 pairs of eyes on me, listening to their laughter, their whispers, their judgment. Melissa smiled like she had just won. Maybe now you'll start acting like a real sister. Mom and Dad stood behind her, not apologizing, not stepping in, not protecting me. They just watched, waiting to see if I would finally give in to what they wanted. That's when something inside me shifted. This wasn't just about the loft. This was about them keeping me in my place, reminding me that no matter how successful I became, no matter how hard I worked, I would always be the disappointment, the one who didn't matter. But they made one very big mistake. They humiliated me in front of 300 people, including some very influential people from Chicago's legal and business circles, people who knew me, people who respected me, people who knew exactly what I was capable of. I reached into my bag and pulled out my phone. My hands were completely steady despite everything burning inside me. Without saying a word, I started typing. Evelyn, what are you doing? Mom asked, her voice suddenly uneasy. I ignored her and kept typing. Around us, people slowly stopped laughing as they realized I wasn't reacting the way they expected. I wasn't crying. I wasn't running away. I was doing something else entirely. Evelyn, put that away, Dad said. You're embarrassing yourself. No, I said quietly, still typing. I'm not the one who should be embarrassed. Melissa tried to grab my phone, but I stepped back and hit send just as her fingers brushed the screen. What did you do? She hissed. I looked up at her, at my parents, and at the crowd that was still watching us with open curiosity. I chose the revenge that would silence you forever. Their confused expressions were almost funny. They had expected me to either give in or break down. They didn't expect me to fight back. My phone buzzed with a reply, then another, then several more in quick succession. Evelyn, what did you send? Mom's voice went sharp, panic starting to creep in. For the first time that night, I smiled. A real smile. I sent a message to my group chat. You know, the one with all my lawyer friends, the journalists I've worked with, the business contacts I've built over the years, the people who actually matter in this city. Melissa's face went pale. What kind of message? Just a little update about tonight. About how my family demanded I give up my loft to my cousin and her new husband. How my mother screamed that selfish children don't deserve success. How my father said my cousin's imaginary children deserved real homes more than I do. How my cousin slapped me in front of 300 people because I wouldn't hand over everything I worked for. The entire ballroom went silent. Even the band had stopped playing. I also mentioned how everyone laughed when it happened. I said, my voice calm but loud enough to carry, how entertaining they found it to watch a successful woman being put back in her place by her own family. Evelyn, you need to delete that right now. Dad said, his voice low and dangerous. I shrugged. Delete what? The truth. Too late anyway. It's already out there. You know how this works, Dad. Once something is online, it doesn't disappear. My phone kept vibrating with messages of support, anger on my behalf, and requests for more details. The story was spreading faster than I expected. You vindictive, Melissa snapped, her voice shaking slightly. No, Melissa, I'm just done being your doormat. Adrian, who had stayed quiet this whole time, finally spoke. Evelyn, maybe we can figure something out. This wasn't supposed to go this far. I looked at him with something close to pity. You married into the wrong family, Adrian. You have no idea what you just got yourself into. What do you mean? He asked, clearly confused. I mean, your new wife and her family just made some very powerful enemies. Do you know who Judge Helen Carter is? She was here tonight. She saw everything. She already texted me saying how disgusted she was by your wife's behavior. Melissa's face lost what little color it had left. Judge Carter was one of the most respected judges in the state, known for having zero tolerance for entitlement and arrogance. And Mark Rivera from the Tribune. He's been following me all evening trying to get an interview about my last case. He saw everything too. He's already asking if I want to comment on how successful women are treated by their families. Evelyn, stop. Mom whispered, panic fully setting in now. You're going to ruin Melissa's wedding. Melissa ruined her own wedding the second she decided to hit me in front of 300 people. It was just a slap, Melissa said quickly. You're overreacting. It was assault, Melissa, and it was witnessed by 300 people, including lawyers, a judge, and now apparently a reporter. You want to know what I deserve? I deserve not to be physically attacked by my own family. My phone rang. I glanced at the screen and smiled slightly. Oh, this is interesting. It's Rebecca Hayes from Hayes & Partners. You know, the firm that handles high-profile reputation cases. She's offering to represent me pro bono. Melissa's face completely drained. In our circles, reputation management meant one thing, damage control. And if Rebecca Hayes was calling, it meant the story had already spread far beyond this room. Evelyn, please, Melissa said quietly now. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to hit you. I was just emotional. You're sorry? I let out a small laugh. But there was no humor in it. You're sorry there are consequences. You're sorry you can't just take whatever you want from me anymore. But you're not sorry for what you did. I am sorry, she insisted. I'll apologize publicly. I'll tell everyone it was a mistake. Too late for that. The damage is already done. And it was. I could see it in the faces around us. The laughter was gone, completely replaced by uneasy whispers and uncomfortable glances. People who had laughed just minutes ago were now looking at Melissa with open disgust. The story had already taken on a life of its own. What do you want? Dad said finally, his voice lower now, the confidence gone. I want you to leave me alone, I said simply. All of you. I want you to stop treating me like a bank account. Stop expecting me to sacrifice everything for Melissa's convenience, and stop pretending that family means anything to you beyond what you can get from me. Evelyn, we're still family, Mom said quietly. No, we're not. Family doesn't demand you give up your home. Family doesn't scream at you in public. Family doesn't hit you at a wedding. Family supports each other, celebrates each other, and respects each other. You've never done that for me. My phone buzzed again. This time it was a message from my assistant. Evelyn, TMZ is calling. They want to know if you're the lawyer who got hit at the Plaza wedding. What should I tell them? I turned the screen so everyone could see it. TMZ is calling. This is about to become very public. Melissa started crying, her perfect makeup streaking down her face. Evelyn, please? This is my wedding day. Don't ruin it. I'm not ruining anything, Melissa. I'm just refusing to be your victim anymore. What do we do? Adrian asked, his voice tight. How do we fix this? I looked at him, then at my parents, then at Melissa in her wedding dress, shaking and crying. You can't fix this, Adrian. This is who they are. This is what they do. They take and take until there's nothing left. And when you finally say no, they turn on you. Around us, the ballroom was starting to empty. Guests were quietly slipping away, not wanting to be part of what was clearly turning into a disaster. Melissa's perfect wedding was falling apart in real time. The loft is mine, I said calmly. I earned it, I paid for it, and I'm keeping it. If you want something like that, Melissa, get a job. Work for it like I did. I can't believe you're doing this, she muttered. I can't believe it took me this long. I turned to leave, but Dad grabbed my arm. Evelyn, wait, we can figure this out. Counseling, mediation, whatever you want. I looked down at his hand on my arm, then back up at his face. Let go of me, Dad. He let go immediately, clearly aware of how that would look now. There's nothing to figure out, I said. You made your choice tonight. You chose Melissa, like you always have. You chose her comfort over my work, her demands over my boundaries. And when I said no, you chose to stand there and watch her hit me. We didn't know she was going to do that, Mom said quickly. But you didn't stop her. You didn't say anything. You didn't even check if I was okay. I started walking toward the exit, my heels echoing against the marble floor. Behind me, I could hear Melissa crying, Mom whispering frantically, and Dad muttering under his breath. I didn't turn around. At the door, I paused for a second and looked back. The beautiful ballroom now looked like a scene after a disaster. Guests standing in small groups, whispering. The bride crying in smeared makeup. The groom looking lost. My parents trying to control something that was already out of control. You know what's funny? I said, my voice carrying across the room. I would have helped you. If you had asked, if you had treated me like family instead of a resource, I would have helped you find a place. I might have even helped with the down payment. Silence. But you didn't ask. You demanded. You yelled at me. You insulted me. And then you hit me when I said no. So now you get nothing. I walked out of the plaza with my head high, leaving everything behind. The elevator ride down felt endless. As the doors closed, I could still hear the noise from upstairs. Voices, crying, chairs scraping across the floor as people started leaving. My phone kept vibrating in my hand, message after message coming in. Support, anger, questions. The lobby was quiet, too quiet. The night manager, a man in his 50s, walked over with concern on his face. Miss Anderson, is everything okay? We heard some commotion upstairs. I paused for a second. Even the staff already knew. I'm fine, just family drama. He nodded politely, but I could see the curiosity in his eyes. By tomorrow, everyone would know. In this city, things like this spread fast. Outside, the cold October air hit my face. Funny, considering I had already been slapped once tonight. I stood there for a moment, watching the traffic move past the park, trying to process everything that had just happened. Part of me couldn't believe I actually did it. The other part wondered why it took me so long. My phone rang. It was Riley, my closest friend, a prosecutor I had met years ago. Evelyn, what the hell is going on? I just saw your message and now there are photos everywhere. Did she really hit you? Yeah, she did. I started walking, needing to move, needing to do something with the adrenaline still running through me. Are you okay? Do you want me to come over? I'm fine. Actually, I'm better than fine. I think I'm finally free. Free? Free from pretending they're my family. Free from feeling guilty for my success. Free from walking on eggshells around them. There was a pause on the line. Evelyn, you know this is going to get messy, right? I know, but I'm done being the one who fixes everything for them. Let them deal with it. What about your parents? I stopped walking for a second. They stood there and watched. They demanded I give up my home. They called me selfish for keeping what I worked for. When exactly am I supposed to care about how they feel? You're right, Riley said softly. I'm sorry. Family means everything to me, but they stopped being my family a long time ago. I just didn't want to see it. After I hung up, I decided to walk home instead of taking a car. I needed time. Time to think. Time to understand what I had just done and what was about to happen next. The walk felt longer than usual. Block after block, my heels hitting the pavement in a steady rhythm, my phone still buzzing in my hand every few seconds. Messages kept coming, some from coworkers who had been at the wedding, telling me they were shocked, that they were on my side. Others from friends who had already seen everything online. And a few from journalists who had somehow already gotten my number and were asking for a statement. One message stood out. Patricia Reynolds, the senior partner at my former firm. We hadn't spoken in a long time. Evelyn, I just found out what happened tonight. I want you to know you have my full support. What they did to you was unacceptable. Call me if you need anything. I stopped walking for a second, staring at the message. That was when the tears finally came. Not from humiliation, not from pain, but from something else entirely. Relief. Here was someone who didn't owe me anything. Someone who didn't need anything from me. And yet she showed up. Because it was the right thing to do. It made me realize just how wrong my family had always been about me. They always painted me as cold, selfish, obsessed with money. But the messages filling my phone told a different story. They came from people who actually knew me, people who had seen me stay late to help junior associates, people who knew about the pro bono work I did quietly without telling anyone, people who had watched me give everything to build something on my own. By the time I reached my building, I had over 300 messages and missed calls. My doorman, Luis, looked at me the second I walked in. Miss Evelyn, you okay? You look like you've had a rough night. Luis had been working there for years. He had seen me come home exhausted from law school, seen me after breakups, seen me during the worst and best moments of my life. He knew me better than my own family did. I've had better nights, Luis, I said, but I think things are about to get better. He smiled. You deserve that. In the elevator, I finally looked at myself. My cheek was still red, my hair slightly messy, my makeup smudged, but my eyes looked different. Clear, focused, like someone who had just walked out of something and wasn't going back. When I stepped into my loft, everything felt quiet, peaceful. The floor-to-ceiling windows stretched across the wall, the city lights reflecting like stars. This was mine. I built this. I earned this. And no one was taking it from me. I poured myself a glass of wine and sat down, finally opening social media. The video was already everywhere. Someone had recorded the moment Melissa slapped me, probably thinking it was funny. Now it had thousands of shares. Comments flooded in. This is disgusting. Who hit someone at a wedding? That woman is a legend for standing her ground. Her sister is entitled as hell. But it wasn't just random people. I recognized names, lawyers, executives, even a few public figures. People were watching, and they were taking sides. The narrative was growing beyond that ballroom, beyond the wedding, beyond my family. My phone rang again. It was my assistant, Jenna. Evelyn, I'm so sorry to call this late, but I've been getting calls all evening. The office voicemail is full. Reporters keep calling my personal number. What kind of reporters? All of them. Local news, gossip pages, even national outlets. This is blowing up fast. I closed my eyes for a second. What are they asking? Everything. If you're pressing charges, if you're planning to sue, what your relationship with your family was like before this. Of course they were. A successful woman getting publicly attacked by her own family? That was a story people wanted to talk about. Jenna, draft a statement, I said. Keep it simple, professional. Something like, Evelyn Anderson appreciates the support she's received and is focusing on her work and clients at this time. She won't be making further comments about this private matter. Should we mention charges? I paused. I hadn't even thought about it yet. The slap wasn't about hurting me physically. It was about humiliating me. But still, don't mention anything about that yet. Let's keep our options open. After I hung up, I realized I hadn't eaten anything all night. I ordered food and sat back, scrolling again. The story was already evolving. It wasn't just about one slap anymore. People were talking about bigger things: family expectations, women being pressured to give up their success, toxic relationships. My story had turned into something else entirely, something bigger than me. Melissa's social media was exploding too. Her wedding photos were buried under thousands of angry comments. People calling her entitled, abusive, spoiled. Her wedding hashtag had turned into a stream of that video. For a moment, I almost felt bad. Almost. Then I remembered her face when she hit me. That look, like she had finally won. And the feeling disappeared. My food arrived, but I barely tasted it. My phone kept lighting up, call after call from people I hadn't heard from in years. My college roommate, a distant cousin, even my old guidance counselor from high school. Everyone had seen it. Everyone had an opinion. But one call stood out. Judge Helen Carter. "Evelyn, I hope it's all right that I'm calling. I got your number from the directory." "Of course, Judge." I wanted to say, "I'm sorry for what I saw tonight." "You don't need to apologize. You didn't do anything wrong." "I should have stepped in," she said quietly. "I should have said something." "You were a guest. It wasn't your place." "Maybe not, but I've been thinking about it all night, and I keep coming back to the same thing." I waited. "That wasn't just family drama," she said. "That was a pattern." A pattern? Emotional pressure, financial control, public humiliation, and then physical violence. I've seen it in court too many times. Her words hit harder than the slap. Because deep down, I knew she was right. I had just never said it out loud before. "This wasn't just one bad night," she continued. "This was years building up to this moment." I sat there in silence, thinking about every conversation, every demand, every time I was made to feel guilty for my own success, every time I gave in. "I never thought of it like that," I said quietly. "Most people don't. Not when it's family." After we hung up, I sat there for a long time, just thinking, had I really been abused? The word felt too heavy, too extreme. They hadn't hit me before. They hadn't controlled my daily life. But they had done something else. They had minimized everything I achieved, made me feel guilty for it, expected me to sacrifice for Melissa again and again, and when I finally said no, they turned on me. Publicly. Violently. Maybe Judge Carter was right. Maybe I just didn't want to see it. Because seeing it meant accepting something I wasn't ready to admit. That they never really loved me the way I thought they did. They loved what I could give them. The realization hurt, but it also freed me. For the first time in my life, I didn't feel responsible for fixing things, for making peace, for being the good daughter. That role was gone, and I didn't want it back. By the time the clock hit 2 a.m., I was exhausted. Not just physically, emotionally. I turned off my notifications and got ready for bed. That's when the intercom buzzed. I froze. I walked over slowly and looked at the screen. Melissa, still in her wedding dress, makeup ruined, hair falling out of place. She looked broken. "Please," she said, looking up at the camera. For a second, I hesitated. This was my cousin, the girl I grew up with, the one I used to share secrets with, and now she was standing outside my building asking for help. But then I remembered her face when she hit me, her voice when she said she deserved everything I had. The sound of people laughing. I turned off the screen and walked away. The next morning, it was everywhere. News sites, social media, headlines, lawyer assaulted at luxury wedding. The photo of her hand against my face was already viral. By noon, it was trending. Thousands of people sharing it, adding their own stories, their own experiences with toxic families. It wasn't just my story anymore. It became something people recognized. That afternoon, things started falling apart for them. Adrian's firm opened an internal review. Melissa lost clients at her job. My parents suddenly found themselves being quietly avoided in their social circles. Everything they cared about, reputation, status, image, was slipping away. And I hadn't done anything illegal. I just told the truth and let the world do the rest. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is stop protecting people who hurt you. Melissa called me a week later, crying, begging, "Evelyn, please, you have to help us fix this." Her voice was shaking, broken, nothing like the confident tone she had at the wedding. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I didn't mean for this to happen." "You meant to humiliate me," I said calmly. "Me to give up my home. You meant to put me in my place in front of 300 people. The only thing you didn't mean was facing consequences." I'll do anything. She rushed out. I'll apologize publicly. I'll tell everyone I was wrong. Melissa, stop. I was sitting in my loft, looking out over the city I had worked so hard to build a life in. You can't apologize your way out of this. You can't undo what you did. And you don't get to demand forgiveness just because things aren't going your way anymore. But we're family, she whispered. Family doesn't hit each other. Family doesn't demand sacrifices they wouldn't make themselves. Family doesn't laugh when one of their own is humiliated. I know I messed up, but please, just help me fix this. I can't fix this for you. This is something you're gonna have to live with. She started crying harder. Then the call ended, and that was the last time I heard from her. 6 months later, everything had changed. Melissa and Adrian got divorced. The pressure from everything that happened, the attention, the fallout, it destroyed their marriage before it ever really began. Melissa moved back in with my parents. Their lives weren't what they used to be anymore. People kept their distance. Invitations stopped coming. Conversations changed when they entered a room. The reputation they cared so much about was gone. Meanwhile, my life went in the opposite direction. My practice grew. More clients reached out. People respected what I did. Not just as a lawyer, but as someone who stood her ground. Someone who refused to be controlled. I never got my family back. But then again, I realized I never really had them. What I had was a group of people who saw me as something to use, not someone to love. I kept the loft. Of course I did. I turned one of the extra rooms into an office, another into a guest room. The space they said I didn't need became filled with people who actually valued me, people who didn't expect anything from me, except honesty. Sometimes I think about that night, wonder if I could have handled it differently, if there was a way to keep my boundaries without destroying everything. But then I remember the sound of that slap, the laughter, the way Melissa looked at me like she had finally won, and I know there wasn't another way. I chose the response that would silence them, and it worked. They never asked me for anything again. The silence was exactly what I needed. In the end, I realized something important. The best revenge isn't always getting even. Sometimes it's just refusing to let people keep hurting you. Sometimes it's standing there and saying, no, you don't get to treat me like this anymore. And sometimes that's enough to change everything.